Hey there, this is Freddy with 5280scuba.com. We're here to talk about snorkels. Basically a tube you just breathe through. Does technology really make a difference? We'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, so today we're talking about snorkels. When I was a little kid, I tried to put a hose in my mouth and go to the bottom of the pool. Didn't work. Too long. What's the difference between just a curved tube of plastic and some of the modern technology? Well, the materials that it's made of today makes a huge difference, and then a lot of the different features make it a much better experience for the snorkeler. We'll start with the materials that it's made of. You have, instead of the old days when it was just a solid PVC pipe that just curved with a little rubber mouthpiece on the end, you have components now. It's made in different sections. So you'll have a flex section in many of the good snorkels. You'll have a purge valve on the bottom. You'll have a reservoir, which I'll talk about in a minute. You'll have a mouthpiece area, and then you will have some form of the top of the snorkel, whether it's an open top, whether it's a wave guard, whether it's a ultra dry snorkel or a semi-dry snorkel. It will make a difference. And then you have some that are meant for very specific purposes, which I'll get to in just a second. So in choosing the proper snorkel, your experience actually makes a huge difference here. If you came to me and said, we're brand new, we've only snorkeled once, or we're taking lessons and we're going to get out there and we want the best experience possible so our vacation is awesome. Great. An open top snorkel is not for you. You're going to want the ultra dry. Why? Because the ultra dry is the driest snorkel on earth. It keeps the water out of the snorkel. That's the whole idea. Now, you've seen different, throughout the ages, I've seen different snorkels that do it a different way. Little kid ping pong ball that seals the hole when they go under, all that kind of stuff. Well, today, the ultra dry technology will work whether a wave hits over your head, or whether you dive and you're upside down, or whether you're sideways. The ultra dry technology will seal the top of the snorkel. You get very little water in the snorkel at all, and you simply can't get anything better at this point. Now, that technology is used over many different brands. So that's what you want to look for if you don't have as much experience. Now, if you had a lot of experience, the opposite end of the spectrum is, and you know how to clear a snorkel very well, then you can use an open top snorkel, and if the water gets in it, no problem for you. You'll have to take a lesson to understand all those differences, but you don't just blow it out, because then you'll find people still coming up, taking the snorkel out of their mouth, dumping it out, and all that. So let's talk a little bit about, in a quality snorkel, you're going to have a purge valve. The purge valve is just a thin layer of silicone, little diaphragm, that it's one way. It's like a one-way valve. It allows water to go out but not come back in. The pressure of the water should stop any water from coming in, because it's going to hold the flap up against the purge. The challenge with a purge can be sometimes you get sand in it. It deteriorates faster because it's very thin. It can warp in the sun, and then you plunge it in the cool water and it stays warped a little bit. But it can be replaced really easy. And it's usually about $1, a couple minutes takes to replace it, piece of cake. Next, you have what would be called the reservoir. Many different snorkels have a different take on their reservoir. Some are a little deeper than others, and some are a little more voluminous. They hold a little bit more water. The idea with a reservoir is that if there is a little bit of water down inside here, it's not going to interfere with your breathing path. So you just give it a sharp little poof, and it'll come out the purge, and that's how you evacuate the reservoir. But the more reservoir there is, the more water it could hold without you gurgling or having it interfere with your airway. The flex tube that's connecting the two pieces is a very important piece. Many snorkels don't have this. The better snorkels do. It's going to be silicone, as is the mouthpiece. It's going to be smooth on the inside, corrugated on the outside, so it's flexible. But the biggest reason for this is when you're wearing this snorkel, it allows some flexibility as to how you mount it to your mask without pulling on your mouth so much. If this was rigid, you could see that if I pulled this, you know, it would want to pull my mouth back and forth, so it's much more comfortable. Then the mouthpiece itself, what you're looking for is a replaceable mouthpiece. Many people chew through these things, and even if you're not a biter, you'll notice that some snorkels have a comfort bite mouthpiece. It has a little pillow material in there. Some of them have like a spongy piece. Some are moldable. You put them in hot water, put it in your mouth, and then you mold it to your teeth custom. You might have an underbite or an overbite. You might have a small child that needs a youth mouthpiece. They're universal in size, most of them, so you can just go to your local dive shop, buy the one that you like the best, that fits you the best, and put it on there. And if you happen to be on a trip and you did chew through it, bite off the inside pieces, it's always replaceable without replacing the snorkel. Next, you have the actual tube that it's made out of. Most of these are PVC, or a polycarbonate material. They're rigid, and they're meant to sit upright behind your head, and then they'll have some measure of connecting to a mask. Now, there are some out there that have a little bit of an advantage, like this is a Tusa snorkel, and the nice thing about this part here is it's made out of a material that won't break. And it's not that you want to fold this up in your bag and store it that way. It's that if you run over it with the car or it gets bent in a bag severe enough, it's not going to kink. It's going to return back to its shape. Okay? Now, the method of attaching the snorkel to the mask, a couple things to think about. There's many different kinds out there. Every snorkel is just a little different. But what would be nice is to have a piece where you were connecting it to your mask strap and you didn't have to take your strap off your mask. So whether they have a little clip that spreads out or whether it totally detaches and stays on the mask so you can pack your snorkel separate, that's usually the best. A fail-safe is those little silicone rings that are strapped in the middle, but you have to either take that off the snorkel or you have to take the strap off the mask, which is kind of a pain. Now the top makes a big difference. The top is according to your experience level. So you have what's called an open top. There's nothing to stop the water from going down in, whether a wave comes over your head or whether you're diving down under. You have a wave guard meant to minimize the water that goes in with a wave that kind of hits you, right? But it won't stop water from going in if you dive under. And then you have something called the ultra dry top. And really it has a seal, a thin silicone seal in there with a series of floats that whether you're sideways, upside down, or just a wave hits you, it seals the snorkel from water from going in. Works very effectively. Why does your experience make a difference? Well, if you're a brand new snorkeler, let me tell you, you're going to get water in this snorkel. Every wave, every time you turn your head too far, you're going to be fighting the water in the snorkel. And if you're not very experienced, that can be frustrating. If you know how to clear a snorkel real well, then you can dive with this snorkel, come up with no water in it at all if you know how. But if you don't, that becomes a challenge every time you go under. And then the purge valve, they're not really meant to evacuate all the water out of a snorkel that's full. And just by blowing hard, yeah, you're going to get a lot of it out, but you're going to have a lot come right back down in too. So that's not really for an inexperienced snorkeler. That's for somebody that's very, very experienced because water will get in every time. The wave guard, it makes it a little bit better. Like I said, it minimizes the waves coming over, minimizes a little bit of the splash from turning side to side. But if you go underwater, you still have to know how to clear this snorkel very well to get all the water out of it when you come back to the top. The ultra dry technology actually is the driest snorkel on Earth. At this point, you cannot get anything better. So it keeps almost all the water out. I won't say you'll never get drips in there or a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but that can be easily handled by the Purge. It is designed to work whether you're upside down, sideways, or not, and they seal very well. You simply can't get a drier snorkel. And now I'm going to talk about something that you don't see too often, but it's coming on the scene. It's actually a very good idea. When you are scuba diving, some divers don't like to wear a snorkel all the time. Yes, for an emergency, and you're trained to use a snorkel, and if there's an emergency, to use it on the surface if you ran out of air. That's the argument for the snorkel, but some divers, you just notice, just don't do it. Well, the answer to that is what we call the RollyPoly. And the RollyPoly is simply a very flexible silicone snorkel that folds up in a case. You can either clip it onto your BC, or you can put it in a BC pocket. Now, what the RollyPoly does is it's literally rolled up inside the case, and when I pull it out, it turns into a snorkel. I wouldn't want to use this snorkel for everyday snorkeling because it's very flexible, and it doesn't have things like the ultra-dry technology, the nice mask clips, the separate mouthpiece replaceable. And for a scuba diver that wants to keep the snorkel with him, this is extremely convenient, and it satisfies for instructors. It satisfies the requirements of keeping the snorkel with you at all times in case of an emergency. The RollyPoly. Hey, you've made it this far. Thanks for watching. I hope we've covered all the tips that will help you buy the right snorkel. And if you have any tips for us, please leave them in the comments below.